My name is Marceline. I'm 27 years old. The night my family decided I wasn't really one of them started at a small, fancy restaurant in Wynwood, Miami. We were supposed to be celebrating my sister getting a new promotion at work. I wore a simple dress I had bought on sale. It wasn't fancy, but I liked it. I also carried a small gift for my sister. I didn't really have enough money to buy it, but I told myself it was worth it. After all, it was family, right? When I got to the table, my sister pushed her chair back and spoke loudly, making sure the people at the nearby tables could hear. She said, "Get out of here. Go find another table. This one's for family, not adopted girls." She said it like it was a joke, like it was funny. The people sitting with her laughed, not awkwardly, not like they didn't know what to do, but full, happy laughs as if they had heard this line before. My cheeks felt hot. I felt every single eye on me. My stomach sank. I had lived with these people for more than 20 years. They gave me their last name, their house, their rules. They raised me, fed me, and made me a part of their lives. But at that moment they reminded me I was never really part of them. I didn't walk away. I quietly went to sit at the end of the table. I wanted to stay strong. While they ordered the most expensive food and drinks, I just watched. Appetizers, fancy cocktails, big desserts. They barely touched any of it. I thought about my savings and my next rent payment. I thought about every dollar I had spent carefully over the years. I thought about how I had worked hard to buy even this small gift for my sister. It felt unfair, but I didn't let it show. I stayed quiet. When the bill came, the waiter put it right in front of me. It was $2,000. My eyes widened. No one reached for it. No one even tried to help. Someone just said, "You've got that new client now. You can handle it." My chest tightened, but I smiled. I put my card in, paid, and signed. Then I stood up, ready to leave the restaurant, and maybe ready to leave my family's life for good. Before I tell you what happened next, I want to ask something. What time is it for you right now? And where are you reading this from? I'm curious to see how far my story can travel. When I stepped outside, the humid Miami air felt heavier than before, like the streets themselves were warning me that the night wasn't done with me yet. I hadn't walked more than a few steps when I heard the sound of deliberate heels coming from behind me. The steps were steady, calm, and controlled, nothing like the chaos I had just escaped. A woman stopped beside me. Her presence was calm, but it made me pay attention. It was Aunt Isolde, my mother's aunt. She had always been polite, distant, and quiet, never really involved in my life. She hadn't been mean, but she also hadn't really been close. She didn't touch me or try to comfort me. She simply stood there until the noise from the restaurant faded. I didn't know what else to do, so I followed her to her car. She didn't say anything during the short drive. She didn't try to make me feel better or explain herself. She simply told me to come home with her. Her voice was firm enough that I couldn't refuse. Her condo in the city looked over the lights that spilled across Biscayne Bay, but I barely noticed. My thoughts were still spinning from the dinner. She motioned toward the kitchen table and I sat down. Following her simple instructions felt safer than thinking about what had just happened. She sat across from me after putting her bag down. Her movements were slow, careful, and deliberate, as if she didn't want to disturb something fragile. I had only seen her up close for a few minutes at holiday events. Yet, sitting across from her now felt natural, almost like she had been expecting this night to happen. She told me she had watched the dinner from the bar and heard everything. She didn't yell. She didn't make a big deal about it. She just spoke quietly, clearly, and calmly. She said she did not want to see me go back to a place where I was treated as an accessory, like someone who didn't belong. She said the people who raised me had lost the right to talk about family like they were the only ones who could decide what family meant. There was no warmth in her words, but there was no meanness either. Just sharp clarity. She told me to stay with her for a while, at least until I could think without the sting of humiliation clouding my mind. I agreed, not because I fully understood, but because the alternative, going back to my old home, didn't feel like a safe choice anymore. That night, lying in her guest room and staring at a ceiling I didn't recognize, I realized something important. For the first time I felt quiet inside. Isolde's calmness made me feel like maybe my future would be different from my past. Morning arrived with a stillness that didn't match the storm of feelings in my chest. I stepped into the living room expecting something familiar, but nothing felt the same. Isolde was already seated at the dining table, posture straight, with a folder in front of her. It was as if she had been waiting for me to wake up. A man stood beside her, an attorney named Alaric. He gave me a brief nod. He wasn't here for small talk. Alaric opened the folder with precise, careful movements and began explaining the contents. He spoke about papers, numbers, and signatures. He told me about a financial trust my birth parents had set up to provide for my education, health, and stability until I became an adult. The amount of money was far more than I had ever imagined when I scraped by with part-time jobs during high school. But according to the records, my mother and father had accessed the trust repeatedly over many years. Withdrawals were labeled as family expenses, and the money went into accounts I had never heard of. My pulse tightened. Pieces of my childhood, scattered and confusing, were now falling into place. I had grown up counting old textbooks, patching worn sneakers, and convincing myself that my small place in the household was enough. Meanwhile, my sister and brother had opportunities one didn't understand. Now the explanation was sitting in front of me, clear and undeniable. Alaric wasn't emotional as he explained. He didn't need to be. The numbers told the story. Isolde watched me steadily, her expression unreadable but calm. She didn't interrupt or soften anything. She let the information land where it needed to. The trust had been drained for everything except what it was meant for. I wasn't sure what reaction I expected, anger, grief, disbelief, but instead I felt clarity. The truth I had long suspected was finally in my hands. Alaric then explained the next steps I could take. Each step was based on documents and the law, not feelings. Isolde didn't add anything. She just silently showed that she would support me no matter what I chose. For the first time I felt that my life, the one I thought I knew, had been built on foundations I was never meant to see. The days that followed were strange. It felt as if my life had been emptied out and refilled with shadows cast by people I no longer recognized. Isolde handled most of the meetings with Alaric while I stayed inside her condo answering emails from clients, trying to pretend that routine could still protect me. But the truth kept pressing at the edges of every quiet moment. The trust, the money, the years of pretending that my childhood was just about being careful with money. Then the outside world started knocking. Calls came from numbers I didn't recognize. At first, I let them go to voicemail, assuming they were wrong numbers or spam. But the messages changed. One said, "We need clarification about statements your family made." Another asked about something I had posted online. I checked my phone again and again and the notifications kept piling up. Someone had started something and it was moving fast. That evening, Alaric arrived again to meet with Isolde. His tone was sharper than before, more serious. The weight of everything, the family, the trust, the lies, and the truth, was pressing down on me. I could feel it in my chest, heavy and hard. Isolde didn't flinch. She was calm, steady, and unshakable. I felt a strange mix of fear, relief, and something like hope. For the first time I realized that the life I had thought I understood, the rules, the limits, the little ways I made myself small, wasn't really my life at all. It had been built on other people's choices, decisions I wasn't allowed to see, and money that should have been mine. And now I had a chance to reclaim it, to make choices for myself, to finally be the person I was meant to be. Sitting there in Isolde's condo, listening to Alaric explain the legal steps, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't a sudden happiness. It wasn't a moment of victory. It was a quiet, deep understanding. I had survived years of being made to feel small. I had learned to take care of myself. And now I had proof that my life could change, that my childhood struggles weren't because of me but because of others. Isolde didn't try to make me feel better with words. She didn't need to. Her presence alone was enough. Her calmness, her quiet authority, and her decision to step in had given me a safe place to think. I didn't know what she would do next or why she had chosen to act now, but I trusted her. And for the first time in a long time I felt like I could breathe freely. The next few days passed in a blur of meetings, phone calls, and careful planning. Every piece of information I learned made me stronger even though it hurt. I was learning about my life in a way I never had before, about the money that should have helped me grow, about the opportunities one had been denied. But I also learned that I could take control. I could make decisions, protect myself, and start building a future that belonged to me. Even though it was overwhelming, I felt a quiet determination. I had survived my family's cruelty, paid for their meals, endured their laughter, and yet here I was, still standing. And for the first time I knew that standing wasn't enough. I was ready to step forward, to claim what was mine, and to decide for myself what family really meant. He explained that my mom, Zephra, and my dad, Thorin, had tried to tell a story to other people about me. They made it sound like they were the ones helping me all my life and that I was being ungrateful. They acted like I was trying to take something that didn't belong to me. They didn't say my name directly, but I knew they were talking about me. It felt unfair. I had always thought my family loved me, but the story they were telling made it look like I didn't deserve anything. My stomach felt tight when Alaric explained how quickly stories like this could spread. If I didn't have proof to show the truth, people might believe the wrong story before I could even explain. Alaric wasn't trying to scare me or make me panic. He just stated the facts. I realized that facts could be harsh and powerful even if no one shouted. Later that night I got another message. This time it was from a reporter named Vespera. She was known for writing about family fights and money problems. She said she had documents and statements and wanted to give me a chance to explain my side. Her message wasn't warm. It wasn't friendly. It was professional, like a serious question. But even that was enough to show me that my family had taken this argument far beyond our home. I stared at the message. I didn't know if replying would help or make things worse. Isolde walked in at that moment. She saw the message before I could hide it. She didn't ask me anything. She just said quietly but firmly that staying silent would not protect me anymore. If I didn't speak, other people would tell the story about me before I could tell it myself. Her words made me nervous. Not because I doubted her, but because I had never been asked to speak for myself before. My voice had always been quiet in any room. I was used to avoiding fights at all costs. But now the fight had come to me whether I wanted it or not. Alaric suggested a plan. We could do a controlled interview with proof and documents ready. The idea felt strange and overwhelming. I had never spoken up like this before. But a small part of me felt right about it. I realized I could finally defend my own life instead of explaining myself to other people. I didn't make the decision quickly. It came slowly. I knew that staying hidden wouldn't stop my family from spreading their story. By the end of the night I agreed to the interview. Not because I wanted to get back at anyone or show off, but because the truth had helped me before and staying quiet hadn't helped at all. The studio where we would film the interview was inside an old warehouse on the edge of Wynwood. Even though it had been painted and fixed, the walls still felt old and strong, like they remembered the past. Walking inside felt like stepping into a place built for careful watching. Bright lights hung from the ceiling. Wires ran across the floor. People moved quietly, checking cameras and microphones. Nothing about it looked like the chaos of my childhood home, but my chest still felt tight, just like when I had been scared or nervous as a kid. A man came up and introduced himself as Daniel Morse, the producer. He calmly explained how filming would work. He wasn't there to comfort me. He was just making sure everything was recorded correctly. That made me realize something important. Nobody here would care about my feelings. They only cared about the truth. Isolde sat nearby. She wasn't on camera, but I could feel her support, like she was quietly holding my hand. The interviewer sat across from me, notebook open and ready. This wasn't Vespera, the local reporter who had first contacted me. This was a bigger reporter, someone people really listened to, whose stories could shape what everyone thought. When the cameras started rolling, the questions came. They were clear and fair. They asked about my childhood, about the adoption, about money, and about why I stayed with Isolde. They didn't ask me if I loved my family. Instead, they asked if my family had really helped me. That question felt heavy. It made me stop and think. Alaric stood off to the side, quietly watching everything. He didn't answer for me, but knowing he was there made me feel safe, like there was a shield around me. As the interview went on, something inside me changed. Years of keeping quiet were starting to lift. The more questions the reporter asked, the more I realized how much my life had been shaped by silence. I had spent so long swallowing my feelings, pretending everything was okay. Now talking about it aloud made me feel lighter, like I was letting go of a heavy backpack I had carried for years. Halfway through the interview, the studio door opened suddenly. It wasn't loud, but it changed the air in the room. Everyone noticed. My sister Courtney walked in. She looked tense, like she thought just showing up could change the story. She wasn't invited. She wasn't part of the filming. But she walked straight toward the cameras with confidence, like she expected them to record her. The crew froze, unsure what to do. Courtney started talking loudly, saying that the story being recorded was wrong. She accused the people filming of lying or changing the truth. Her words came fast, like she was panicking. Then she said something that made the room feel heavy and silent. She said that the money taken from the trust was fair because raising me had been their job, even though I wasn't really theirs. The room went quiet. Not because anyone agreed, but because her words were strong and clear. The cameras were still recording everything. I didn't feel happy or proud. I just felt calm. The truth had finally spoken without me having to say a word. The days between the interview and the court hearing felt strange. They felt quiet, like the world was waiting for something important to happen. Papers, statements, and legal forms moved slowly, carefully, and methodically. Everything followed rules and dates. Nothing was chaotic like it had been in my home. When the hearing finally came, it felt serious but calm. The courthouse in downtown Miami wasn't like my childhood home. There were no memories, no shouting matches. It was just rules and order. Alaric walked beside me, quietly telling me where to sit and what to expect. His calmness felt like a structure I could lean on, like a safe bridge over rushing water. Inside the courtroom, the tables felt further apart than they really were. My mom and dad sat stiffly, showing a mix of hurt and pride. My sister Courtney and my brother Lucan avoided looking at me, looking nervous and defensive. This was the first time I had seen them since the interview. They seemed smaller somehow, not in size but in confidence. The judge read all the papers carefully. Every detail of the trust was examined. The money that had been taken was checked. The purpose of the trust was explained clearly. Nothing was emotional. Even the video from the interview was treated as evidence, not a show. Courtney's outburst was recorded, clear and strong, without anyone adding anything. Her voice had power because it was real. Alaric presented our side calmly and carefully, just like before. He didn't say I was a victim. He didn't make Isolde a hero. He simply showed the facts step by step until the story of the past 20 years couldn't be twisted or misunderstood. The language was plain. The tone was steady. I realized something very important. The truth didn't need to be made up or exaggerated to be strong. When the judge spoke, the room felt very still, almost like everyone was holding their breath. The decision was final. My family could not challenge Isolde's choices about her estate. The money taken from the trust had been used wrongly, and they had to pay it back, plus extra for the years it had been missing. The court didn't say anyone was bad or evil. It just said they had a responsibility. Responsibility felt more important than blame. My mom pressed her hand to her mouth as if to steady herself. My dad stared straight ahead, jaw tight, carrying the weight of the decision. Courtney looked shocked. Lucan seemed to shrink in his chair. I didn't feel proud or triumphant. What I felt was calm, clear, and steady. Something that had been unfair for a long time had finally been recognized by someone with the power to say it. For the first time in years, I felt a quiet kind of relief. The chaos of my childhood, the tension with my family, the silence I had been forced to carry, it all had a name now. The truth was out. The rules had been followed. And I didn't have to fight in secret anymore. I could finally exist in the world knowing that the story about me was real and fair. Alaric smiled slightly, not because of victory but because the plan had worked. Isolde stayed near me, quietly supporting me. The world outside the courtroom didn't matter right then. Inside there was clarity. Every person, every word, every piece of paper had its place. And the story I had lived, the story I had carried silently for years, was now known, understood, and acknowledged. Even though my family didn't like the decision, and even though they had tried to make me look bad, it didn't matter anymore. The truth had weight. Facts had power. And responsibility, not blame, had been given to the right people. I realized that silence had been my enemy for years. Let others tell the story for me. But now the story was mine. I didn't have to yell or fight or cry. I didn't have to prove I loved anyone. I just had to let the facts speak, and that was enough. For the first time, I understood that truth is quiet, steady, and unshakable. And that was stronger than anything anyone could say against me. When the judge finished the court session, everyone left the room quietly. No one called after me. No one tried to explain what had happened or say sorry. For the first time, their absence felt like a door closing, one I had never been allowed to open before. It was strange, but it also felt like something I had needed for a long time. In the weeks after the court's decision, my life began to change slowly. It was almost as if the world had been moved while I wasn't paying attention. The noise and excitement around the case faded little by little. It became a quiet background hum instead of something that took over every moment of my life. This calm gave me the space to make decisions I had never imagined making before. Nothing dramatic happened. The change came slowly, carried by a simple feeling that the ground beneath me finally belonged to me. I had the right to decide what my life would be, and no one could take that away. Isolde's health got worse over time, but she handled it with quiet strength. She didn't ask for pity or attention. She stayed calm and steady, just like she had been since the night we left the restaurant. She managed her life with clarity and care, making every step feel important and thoughtful. I stayed close to her not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Our connection had grown strong and meaningful in ways I had never expected. Her presence became like gentle gravity, quiet, steady, and grounding. She gave me a sense of peace just by being near. When Isolde passed away, it happened very quietly. There was no struggle, no dramatic moment. Just a soft sigh that marked the end of her life. I took care of the funeral and other arrangements with Alaric's help. I felt the weight of responsibility, but it didn't crush me. Grief didn't come as a storm. It was a steady, soft ache, mixed with gratitude that she had chosen to be part of my life. I felt thankful that I had shared those years with her. The estate was transferred to me without any problems. Everything was clear and there was no chance for anyone to fight over it. I used some of the inheritance to start a small foundation to help children in foster care. We offered tutoring, money advice, and resources I had wished for but never had. Working on the foundation gave my life direction. It turned years that once felt lost into something useful and meaningful. Sometimes I heard news about my adoptive family. My mother Zephyra lost her office job after the court decision became public. My father Thorin had to go back to night shifts because he couldn't find a steady job. My sister Courtney had a hard time getting work because people knew about the case. My brother Lucan had to declare bankruptcy in just a few months. Their lives became smaller under the weight of the choices they had made. None of them said sorry. When they tried to contact me, it was only to ask for help or a chance to start over. I blocked all of them without thinking. There was nothing left to explain. Distance, which had once been forced on me, became something I could choose. My days were now filled with work, meetings, and the quiet happiness of seeing the foundation grow. I wasn't looking for revenge or friendship with anyone. I just wanted stability. For the first time, I could feel calm surrounding me, and it didn't depend on anyone else's approval. The past no longer controlled my life. It only helped me make better choices. I realized that walking away was never about proving anything. It was about taking back my right to decide my own life, a life that others had once tried to control. Marceline's story shows that family is about how people behave, not just about names. Betrayal can hurt deeply, but taking responsibility brings its own kind of justice. She chose protection over staying close, truth over silence, and self-respect over forced loyalty. Her decision to step away shows that healing often begins when we give ourselves the space we need.